Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 111 of DM Discussions, the podcast for players and DMs alike, where we cover a wide variety of topics to help you with your games. I'm your host, Ryan Reeder, and with me, as always, is my good buddy, Ben Bumhofer. How you doing tonight, Ben?
I am doing pretty great. I'm in a good mood. We're up and peppy and happy and definitely not yawning and stuff, so this is going to be great.
Why would we do that?
No, of course not. Everything's great and happy and awake, and it's going to be awesome.
We're not recording this late at night.
No, we never do at all.
Well, we've actually got a lot of really fun stuff to talk about tonight. And in a lot of ways, a little bit of a counterpoint to our last episode, which was fantastic. And if you haven't listened to it yet, I highly recommend you listen to episode 110, where we talked to Mr. Jeff Reynolds about long-term campaigns, horror, Curse of Strahd, running modules. It was a lot of fun. But before we dive into like our main topic, there's a little bit of news that we wanted to cover. The first all being that if you use D&D Beyond as your 2D virtual tabletop, the maps just got an update. There is now a ping feature, which is super nice.
Yes.
And you've actually got some session controls now where you can stop and start and resume your session.
Yeah, which I was actually able to use that.
Set the maps up. Yeah.
Yeah, it worked out pretty well. Although I will say that once I did start the session, there was a bit of like definite slowdown going on with moving the cursor and stuff like that. And it made kind of like erasing Fog of War a little challenging just because, lag with the mouse and stuff. It wasn't as crisp and clear as possible. So basically I just deleted all the Fog of War. I'm like, oh, who cares?
I noticed between whenever you do drawing, erasing, and like Fog of War erasing, it slows down. So I'm sure they got some optimization they need to do.
Yeah, I mean it's still an alpha, so I'm not too worried about it. But
yeah,
but the pausing session worked out really well because I did have to swap a map around, and all of a sudden just kind of darkened the screen. Didn't have to worry about anything that I was on there. Everything was set up, turned or restarted back up, and new map showed up. It was great.
Yeah, no, I actually, and I might talk about this a little bit. I got to use it because my game that I run every once in a while, life happens, and we meet online, and it worked out. But I actually ended up using D&D Beyond maps for the first time, and
good.
Honestly, it worked pretty well.
Yeah.
I can talk about it a little more later, but yeah, it had enough functionality to do what I needed to do for the most part. I would love, I need to throw in some feedback. I'd love to be able to have a little more finer control to where, the players could only move their assigned tokens, or you could assign tokens to be moved. I would love to see being able to lock tokens to the grid format, which would be kind of nice too. But overall, like it did what it needed to do.
Yeah,
so it was good.
It's got all the features of Owlbear Rodeo right now.
And they just added the expanded game log roll for if you roll your dice digitally. So that's on that page now as well too, which is really nice because everybody else can see it. So there's so much more I think they'll be able to do in the future if you use D&D Beyond for your characters. I think to be fair, and this is going to be me going off on a tiny tangent, Ben.
Okay.
I think I think scrap the 3D version and just pour your resources into this version.
I could see that. Like, don't get me wrong. I love 3D versions of everything and stuff because it's like, having the miniatures right there. But I mean, they're doing pretty good with the 2D tabletop right now.
I feel like at least what I've seen looks way too much like a video game. And one of my players was actually saying after watching the videos, one, they thought it would be very confusing in that play space. And two, they thought it actually took away from the immersion a little bit because it was almost too much with all the effects and all those sort of things. What I would like to see is because you're integrated with D&D Beyond, bring some of that into the 2D version. Allow oh, that's another thing, having radius markers. I would
Mm-hmm.
love to see radius markers so that I could put down, like a
Like
20-foot
your
radius
fireball or something.
fireball, or
Yeah.
yeah, the entangle or something like that, right? So having that, being able to put conditions on people was another really big one.
Mm-hmm.
Concentrating, poisoned, grappled, restrained, etc. Would all be really nice near term additions. But one thing I was thinking of and we were talking about with my players as we were going, is it would be super cool if you could, because it's all integrated in D&D Beyond, it knows exactly what spells you have.
Oh
It knows
yeah.
exactly what features and traits and whatnot you have. Integrate those in. Like if you want to do something cool, do the 2D version of it. I cast fireball. Someone throws a fireball down in a certain area and it does a little explosion fun effect on the map in the exact radius it needs to be.
That would be
So
nice.
you can see exactly, who you're hitting. You can have cool little effects on the ground for things like entangle or hail of thorns, or whatever, that leaves stuff on the ground, or being able to pull in the companions and stuff easily if you summon things. Just a spiritual weapon,
Mm-hmm.
the player being able to click their button, because maps is now fully integrated with characters, and you can actually even kind of see your character sheet on the sidebar. That would be cool, being able to pull up a sidebar of your character sheet or your attacks and spells, right, and then casting them directly from there onto the virtual tabletop. So just just a lot of things I was thinking of and thinking through while we were using it for the first time. But I think there's a lot of potential there. And again, I feel like it would almost be more worthwhile to pump the resources into a version that did that versus all the 3D stuff.
Yeah, like it'd be really neat if the players could like click their character and choose a spell, and then that's when you're gonna have like the line for like, say you're doing just a fire bolt or something, so you can do your line of sight to see if you're actually gonna like hit a wall or something like that, and it goes like the full length of where it can go, but then you can like kind of shrink it back to hit the target that you're going for or something along those lines. But yeah, I mean, just like animations on the map would be something really cool, something neat to just kind of add. Like
Yeah.
imagine fairy fire like lighting up the targets or something like that, like brighter or something, and
Yeah.
little extra bits and stuff would be pretty cool.
Yeah. Flaming orb, something that the player can then cast and put down and move,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's all sorts of things that they could do, especially if they really go the distance and you have maps and you integrate it with the encounter builder, so that maps is then aware of the rounds
Mm-hmm.
and the initiative order as you're ticking down. Super cool stuff right there. And then the character sheet. Yeah. So I'm a big fan. Like I said, this was kind of a out of left field, I thought, but the more I think about it, the more I think it makes sense
Yeah.
to be like developing primarily. And they're adding new maps from old modules and stuff every single month. So I think they just added like Tyranny of Dragons and Elemental Evil or something. All the maps, if you own those, you automatically just get to use those in maps now. So having that kind of be integrated in is really nice too.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of that. Let's see. So they've also added on top of that too, like Storm King's Thunder and Out of the Abyss. So yeah, there's constantly adding more and more in there and stuff, and it's pretty great. I'm a big fan of this stuff.
Yeah. So if you have a subscription and you haven't tried it out yet, and you do your stuff online, especially if your players use D&D Beyond for their character sheets, definitely check it out, because it is certainly worth a try at least.
Yes.
Next, just a few days ago as well, they announced that the 2024 core rule books are going to be expanded to the SRD, or the system reference document. So they put out an article. The team's been hard at work at the 2024 revised and expanded core rulebooks. Obviously, player's handbook coming out in September, DM's guide coming out in November, and then the monster manual finally coming out in February of next year. Then they announced that the 5th edition system reference document, SRD 5.2, which will include updated content from the 2024 core rulebooks and made available again under the Creative Commons license, which is super cool.
Which
So
also, they put that in the very second sentence of this update. So you know where their minds are on this.
yeah, yeah. So, and they released, they've already got, 5.1 out. So they're saying 5.2 is going to be released within a few weeks of the release of the monster manual. So most likely, we're looking at February or March of next year for this brand new system reference document for the 2024 revisions. It is a guide containing the core rules of D&D, included classes and monsters, and is intended to serve as a foundation for your 5th edition compatible creations. So this is the type of thing, if you're wanting to develop a 5th edition supplement to sell, or on the DM's Guild or Kickstarter or whatever, anything to do with 5e, usually this is like the foundation of which you build upon if you want to use official stuff from the 5th edition. And they do say 5.1, obviously, since it's Creative Commons, is not going anywhere. So if you want to keep developing content through the original 5.1, that is basically, I don't know, I guess classic 5e. Are we doing classic 5e and then like new 5e? Whatever, however it ends up becoming referred to. They actually specifically say they're calling it 5.2 because it still encompasses the 5th edition rule set, just with key updates. And 5.2 will remain compatible with all existing products. And one of the other coolest things, I think, is they are intending to localize 5.2, because other languages exist other than English.
What?
Sometimes as Americans, we do tend to forget. But there are lots of other countries, lots of other players, many of which don't speak English, or that is not the primary language. So they do say they're going to be releasing it in each language we support, following the release of all 3 core rule books in those languages. So that is kind of a nice little cherry on top as well for fans in other countries.
Exactly. Inclusivity is always a plus. So I am glad that they're making it a point to do this and continue it as well.
Yeah. And then, oh, go ahead.
Before we get off of D&D Beyond, though, there is something that I think we need to mention.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I think I know what you're about to say.
Yeah.
A little sad.
I mean, okay. So before recently, if you're playing in Dungeons and Dragons and wanted to, pull things from D&D Beyond, like let's say you're going through, you're creating your campaign and everything, and you're looking at the loot table, and all of a sudden you realize, oh, this thing that sounds like it might be kind of cool, I don't have access to it because I don't own it, through D&D Beyond. You'd be able to go through and like piecemeal, buy like pieces of loot or feats or, species or monsters or something along those lines. Unfortunately, there's been a change. You can no longer piecemeal buy bits and pieces of different, books, adventures, supplements, anything like that. So essentially it's, you buy the entire thing and then you'll have access to it on D&D Beyond. Of course, this doesn't change if you've bought something already. You still own it because, you've bought it. But going forward, you'll have to, say, if you want another feat from the same book that you've bought one from, you'll have to buy the entire book at this point. I'm assuming for a discounted amount because you've bought the thing from it already. That I'm not sure about. But I would assume that it would be cheaper because you already own like a chunk of the book. Personally,
one would hope so.
Yeah. Overall, it's a business that is looking to profit. That's something we can never forget about anything that we spend money on. It's a business that's looking to profit. In that regards, okay, I understand why they did that. But and even as someone who, I mean, I buy each of the books on D&D Beyond as they come out. So I own pretty much everything there except the new the Tome of Monsters. I haven't picked that up yet. I still think that's a huge bummer because, there's a lot of people out there who, they just might want, just the base D&D experience, but they want the Artificer as well. But they don't have access to it if they don't buy Tasha's. Or, just something along those lines, or like a certain monster that they might have seen or heard of on like, Dimension 20 or Critical Role or something that's available here. They want to throw it in their campaign, but they don't have access to those stats because they didn't have the ability to drop like $2 to get it and stuff. I think that it's not a good thing to do to your audience, especially when there are people out there who truly do just piecemeal the little bits and everything that they need, as opposed to just getting everything that's, humanly possible to buy.
It limits accessibility.
Yeah, exactly.
At the end of the day, it really just limits accessibility. It raises the barrier to entry to the full price of a book, right? Versus a few bucks here or there for specific things that you want, leaving out the rest of the stuff that you don't want or that you don't feel like you're going to use, right?
Yeah.
So I do think this was definitely a capitalistic driven decision from a profit standpoint for sure. But I was talking to somebody in the wake of one of the other hobbies I have is wargaming. And so I'm adjacent to a lot of the Games Workshop Warhammer type stuff. And Warhammer just recently announced that they're going to be raising their prices by like, I think 3 to 5% or something like that over the next in June. And these models and such that they sell are already getting them massive margins. Like we're talking 50, 55, 60, 70% margins on these things. They're absolutely ridiculous. The type of markup on plastic, right?
Yeah.
And we were talking about this, and in some ways it would make, I feel like from a long-term perspective, and this is the whole problem, because a lot of these companies are just very shareholder short-term profit driven. But in a long-term perspective, it makes more sense, especially if you have these giant margins, to lower prices, lower the barrier of entry, get more people buying your stuff, expand your hobby. Because when you raise prices, you basically start pricing certain people out, and then you are just trying to wring more money out of your whales or your big spenders.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, when you said that you were starting to get into like Warhammer and stuff, I think I literally said to you, "Oh, I can't afford that hobby." I mean, like already I know it's like, okay, in order to really play, you need, well, one, the time investment to paint everything, which I definitely don't have, but the investment of, you need an army, otherwise you can't play.
Yeah. The one, and just for those people out there, there's nothing wrong with playing as the color gray. There's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, so a lot of time I have a 3D printer. I print a lot of my stuff. I play one-page rules, which is different than Warhammer specifically. But it's just one of those things, and because I don't buy a ton of Warhammer models, but if they were more affordable, I might. You would get me to spend money that I wouldn't spend otherwise. And I feel like drawing back to D&D. I feel like that's kind of what those D&D Beyond things were.
Yeah.
Is someone who wasn't going to buy Tasha's anyways, but now is actually going to spend a few bucks on part of Tasha's because they are interested in a certain thing, but they don't want to pay the full price. So I think it's a very short-sighted business decision, and I hope they figure out a way, or not even figure out a way. We know they can do it. They have a change of heart or a change of business strategy to allow that again, because I think it was just very helpful all around.
Yeah, it's almost like, well, when we try to, kind of revamp everything and how we give access to stuff, and we were looking for more money there. Well, that didn't turn out right, so now we're just gonna take it everywhere we can. And like that's a very pessimistic, anti-capitalist view, obviously. But when you're looking at a company who has shareholders and the only thing that keeps it afloat is a stock that's going up, they need profit.
Profit. It's the short-term growth, many times at the expense of the long term.
Yep.
And they are definitely not the only ones with that problem.
No, there are
Uh,
a lot of companies. Anyways, we're not
but
here to
I
talk about that.
digress. Yes, I digress. Bring it back, please. D&D Beyond. Breeze, bring back piecemeal buying. Um, moving on to our brand new adventure that is it's out physically now, and I believe it unlocks here shortly. Vecna Eve of Ruin. I'm starting to see reviews dropping for that. I believe my own. I haven't picked up the physical yet. I don't know if I will or not. I usually get like the digital of adventures. Some adventures that I really like, I'll pick up the physical of. So if I start reading it and I like it, I might end up picking this up. But it does come out digitally on May 21st.
Yep. At the time of this recording, it's 8 days, 11 hours, 48 minutes, and 50 seconds. 49 seconds. 48 seconds.
Yeah.
47 seconds.
But there are starting to be reviews that dropped, and we'll have one of them in our show notes. This one is from Polygon, and there are some spoilers in it. So if you're planning on playing in it instead of running it, be warned. But if you're planning on running it, uh, they actually say just the campaign as a whole is excellent because Vecna Eve of Ruin leans into 5th edition D&D's most successful format, the adventure anthology. The campaign could easily have been sold as a collection of disparate yet unrelated adventures, but it takes that variety of experience and welds it into a singular, compelling storyline. The result is a mastercrafted set of encounters assembled into a 256-page product that reads just about as well as it runs at the table. Be aware, however, that even for a game of D&D, this is very much a collection of exceedingly violent encounters. The campaign features dozens of high-level endgame quality battles, so everyone involved should be prepared for lengthy combat-heavy sessions on the way to saving the multiverse. But gosh, are they ever worth the trouble. This makes my high-level heart happy. Like I have been waiting so long for Wizards to come out with a fully like backed, legit, highly publicized campaign in the tier 3 and 4 region, because it is an incredibly underserved market, not just in general, but especially officially. So have them coming in with this like big Vecna thing, who's a very known big name villain, and then saying, oh yeah, this is level 10 to 20, and then at least from the sounds of things, having very interesting, fun, unique, high level encounters. I think this may end up being one of the best things they could have done for teaching both players and DMs how to play and run high level D&D.
Yeah. I am very much looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. And gosh, like I kind of want to run it as an adventure as opposed to just kind of, pulling piecemeal from it and stuff, just because it is such a high level experience. 10 to 20 is pretty much unheard of in, official adventures and stuff. So getting that, jumping through the multiverse, all that fun stuff just seems really cool. Like I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it is certainly something that I don't know when, but at some point I want to either run it or play in it.
Exactly.
Like I've obviously got a very planned long-term campaign that's going on right now.
Me too.
So I don't know when I would actually find the time to fully DM it, but boy howdy, that seems like it would be so much fun to play in
hmm
because they've actually got like a little precursor, like lower level, like intro story too that they gave away for free on D&D Beyond. And then you can use that as a springboard to jump into the 10 through 20, which is also pretty cool as
Yeah.
well. So I'm excited to get my hands on it and kind of look through it a little bit, see what official like high level encounters look like. That's going to be really exciting. Um, and then continue just to watch the reviews rolling in. But so far, the few that I have seen from some of the review copies that have gone out are very positive. So that makes me very happy.
Well, good. But yeah, it's exciting. I'm really looking forward to it.
All right. So, jumping from the news, let's jump into our main topic. How long should an adventure be? So, we made reference to this last episode, but this is a fairly recent Matt Colville running the game video called How Long Should an Adventure Be? We'll have the link to it, this obviously um, in the show notes. But Ben, I wanted to talk a little bit about this because last week we talked, or last episode we talked about like Curse of Strahd specifically.
hmm
That is a very long campaign. That is a very long campaign. Many of the campaigns that D&D has officially are long campaigns, like the Dragonlance one, um, the Storm King's Thunder, Tyranny of Dragons, Descent into Avernus. Like
Rhyme
these
of
are
the Frost
all,
Maiden. Like,
yeah, Rime of the Frost Maiden. These are all very lengthy campaigns, and they are a lot of times held up as, and this I believe is the argument he makes, because I watched through this and I thought there was a lot of really good points. They're held up as the standard
yeah.
now, and that was not always the case. This is like a much more recent edition thing versus the earlier editions of D&D when you had these little modules that were, 10, 16 pages or something like that, right? A big one is 40 pages, maybe. So having all that that kind of shift, he argues, uh, really makes the game unaccessible, unattractive, or potentially uh, can lead to easy burnout or dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking through that, and it's weird because I'm probably one of the like, I don't know, 10 or 15% because basically every campaign I've played in or ran has gone for longer than a year. So I
Yeah.
don't, it's weird because I haven't really experienced as much of the players getting bored with a campaign or things taking too long to feel satisfying or that kind of thing. But I totally understand the argument.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm kind of with you in that because, I've been in the games that I have played, they would have been long companions if, like life didn't happen and fizzled out. But it had nothing to do with people like becoming bored with what we were doing. It was just like, okay, well, we can't find a time to get together in the next 4 months. Why are we still trying to do this kind of thing? And then, of course, my campaign, we took a very long hiatus, but everybody was super excited to get back into it. And we did, it's something I've been running. I'm on my third arc of like kind of a story and stuff that we're kind of going through. And, I'm with you on I like long form stuff. I like the idea of actually taking a character from 1 to 20, like kind of going through learning, seeing what happens, seeing how the world changes and everything like that. But for people, who don't have time, who are only maybe able to, devote a month, gosh, even saying that
Like once
sounds
once a
like,
month.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like a once a month kind of campaign, like something that takes, normally, like if you're playing like, every week, something that would take a year takes a very long time. And there's the idea of, okay, well, I'm getting together with my friends and we're hanging out and having fun, as well as, okay, I'm excited to get back into this campaign. Like when you're chomping at the bit for more content, like that's a good thing. But if it's so drawn out in between sessions, it can get just unsatisfying that way.
Yeah, and one of the things he argues is you don't have it's these long ones. It can be very hard to have the sense of finality, satisfaction, and closure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it takes so long to fully wrap something up. Sometimes, and you can kind of do this with arcs, right?
Yeah.
If you break up your thing, and it's not like one giant thing, and you break up your thing into sections, it's like this section is this to this, and then this ends in a satisfying conclusion to this arc, but there may be more story out there type
Yeah.
thing. That's certainly one way you can combat that sort of thing. But I also do agree, like, so I'm just looking, I pulled up the Lost Mine of Vandelver, which is the starting adventure for 5e for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
It's 64 pages.
Yeah.
Like
That's a bit long.
that's meaty still. Like it's not a 256 page Eve of Vecna, right? But it's still a very intimidating thing for a brand new DM to just try and read through the whole thing or prep the whole thing
Mm-hmm.
before they start. So one of the things that he praised is the anthology stuff, right? And Wizards has actually been doing a little bit better of a job lately, releasing some more anthology type books: Candlekeep Mysteries, Radiant Citadel, um, was it
Golden
Keys,
Keys.
Golden Keys? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Was that the heist book?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and then there's the like
Keys
Infinite
from the Golden
Staircase.
Vault. There we go.
Keys
Sorry.
from the Golden Vault, and
Yeah.
then Infinite Staircase is
Mm-hmm.
is upcoming. So those types of things are very good, and especially, and I think at this point, if a person came to me and said, I wanted to DM a campaign, and they're all high from watching Dimension 20 or Critical Role or NanPod or something like that, and they're like, I just want to start my own big campaign. Honestly, I think I'm at the point where I would warn them against doing that, at least right away.
Well, let me stop you right there. If their main thing they're watching is Dimension 20, yes. If their main thing they're watching is Critical Role, no. Let them just jump right into a whole huge long campaign, because even in just those sort of media forms, that is an entirely big difference as well. You have a short form kind of, storyline and, mini campaign going on with Dimension 20 versus Critical Role, where you're looking at, hundreds of hours of gameplay. So depending on kind of what they're feeling and what they're wanting, there's an entirely different feel for, what they may be even going for.
I I would I would say true, but I would also disagree with you a little bit, simply because um, when you look at something like a Dimension 20, you have so much lore and so much world building. Like there is a
Mm-hmm.
lot of elements to those. They make it look easy,
Yeah,
and they
that's
edit
true.
it down. They edit it down to a more digestible format. But at the end of the day, if you look at like their main things, not their like side story ones,
Mm-hmm.
their main things, you're still talking 60, 80 hours
True.
possibly. And those are edited, right? Those are edited down to make them more watchable. Um, so just, I mean, just so much to say that I would go. I love that you want to build your own world. I love that you want to run Curse of Strahd because you've heard it's amazing. Um, but I would not. I just don't think I would, especially anymore. I don't think I would recommend someone, even Fandelver. I don't think I would recommend someone running a full module for their first thing because one, it's a lot. It's a lot to put on. I would probably recommend if it was something official, I'd probably recommend one like go grab one of the anthology books
Mm-hmm.
and run a few of those. Like we were talking about we ran a level 10 from Candlekeep. It was 4 or 5 sessions. Like that's good. Find yourself a group, get comfortable, and then figure out those people's play styles because it is a lot, especially if you only play once a month or even once every other week. It's a lot, and times people don't realize the commitment of going. We're going to start this, and we're going to be playing this for the next 6 months, the next year, the next 2 years. That is a lot of commitment, especially for new people who don't necessarily know what's going on, especially for new people who are in a group, even if it's friends or a group you form online, right?
Mm-hmm.
Test the waters before you say, all right, group, I'm starting up a Curse of Strahd campaign. Let's get me, the brand new DM, and 4 or 5 random people I found on startplaying.games, and we're going to do Curse of Strahd. I think that's a recipe for disaster. I mean, obviously, every once in a while, you might hit the proverbial jackpot of people, right? And everything just works out.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say 9 times out of 10, that's going to end in disappointment. It's going to end before the campaign is complete.
Yeah. I totally get where you're going with, but also I have the experience of just putting a one shot together that's turned into this years long campaign and it's gone really well. So like I'm not really advocating for either of them other than, just play and kind of, after talking with everybody, seeing what's going on and like figuring out what everybody does want, aiming it that way is a really good idea. But going back to the whole like the actual subject matter of like a small couple adventure thing versus like a long campaign, I think that one of the things that you're really hitting on that I agree with the most is that things like Candlekeep Mysteries and Radiant Citadel, the fact that they do have they're just all anthology, is that is the perfect place to start for anybody. Because if you're looking for that finality that you get that Matt was kind of talking about, you get that at the end of like each story, like because you can look at each of those as like a different arc in your overall campaign, because you can use the entire book as your whole campaign versus Strahd, which would be the entire book being the whole campaign. And you can kind of work it that way if you want to, or if it gets to the point where you're like, what, everybody's having fun, I'm maybe doing my own homebrew world or whatever, we're just going to go up to level 5, like have something manageable, something that you're kind of figuring, make sure everybody's kind of in and on board for it. A lot of it really comes down to the group, how it works out, and what you're going with. But the thing that you and I 100% agree on here, Ryan, is that the idea that everything, or pretty much, a vast majority of what's being put out by Wizards is these long form campaigns that I would say probably 50% or more of the people who start them never finish them, just because
I would
it is
love
so
to see
long.
the stats on
Oh,
that.
same here. And I mean,
I'd
it's
love to
nothing
see
that
the
Wizards
stats.
could track. It would just have to be like go to your game store and put a a tally mark of what did you finish, what didn't you, or something like that. Because
That would be an interesting survey for them to run,
yeah,
wouldn't it?
I would love to see, like, seriously see the results of that, because it can help them also, kind of figure out and fine tune and put their focus on what, would sell more if, these shorter form adventures and stuff is something that, is finished and completed and keeps everybody interested in wanting more, then, throw another, 5 anthology books in the mix, and you've got a lot more content out there that's just kind of piecemeal for people to play with. Or take something, like Vecna is a big grand adventure. Like, we can agree on that. Strahd is big grand adventure. Rime of the Frostmaiden, maybe it didn't have to be as grand. Maybe you can cut out, a couple chapters of that and have it be a smaller, more, digestible piece of content, so that, when you are starting off at a lower level and kind of going through, you do get that sense of heroism. You do get that sense of adventure, except it ends so that, you're not finished. I don't know what level you're actually supposed to end at, maybe 10, 12, something like that. I don't know, who knows? But maybe you end somewhere sooner, and then that's when you pick up and move to an entirely different part of the world, like have more campaign books that kind of, connect to each other, but have the characters kind of traveling around. Like, if you want it to be the Sword Coast, you've got a whole bunch of different places you can go there. You don't need to have your adventures always be, okay, well, this one's 5 to 10. That one over there, it's 5 to 10. That one over there, it's 5 to 10, or something along those lines. Have the mix, have it manageable so that you can kind of interchange things, and just make it so that you have as much content as you need for as long as you need to play to feel satisfied.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a lot of communities, especially if you're getting started as a DM, you want something to run in between, or your group is not into long form stuff,
Mm-hmm.
or you've tried long form stuff that's fizzled out, and you just want to go, week by week, or every few weeks by every few weeks. Sometimes I talk to people and they're like, yeah, I've played, every class or whatever. And in my mind, I'm going, holy crap, how did you do that? Like, because
Yeah.
my default thinking, and this might be a 5th edition thing, is 6 months, a year, 2-year campaigns, 3-year campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, I played this one character for 2 years or whatever, and I just don't get the chance to play like all the other stuff. And then, but some people are just doing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shots. They're doing new characters. They're getting tons of variety and stuff too. So I think that's also a great way to play.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things he mentioned was adventurelookup.com.
Yes.
Now, this isn't necessarily just a 5th edition thing. This has actually got older editions of D&D and some other systems. But 5th edition has widely the largest amount of adventures. But it's basically links to a bunch of adventures. It tells you kind of what they are, the level they are, and how many pages they are. And so you can go and find an adventure. Let's just take the Pirates Cove. It's a level 5 adventure. It's 4 pages. Talk
Yeah.
about like not overwhelming, fairly easy prep, right? Or something like I don't know, like Clockwork, a Tome of Foes adventure. Levels 11 through 13. It's 12 pages long.
Yeah. There's this one right here. Orange and Black, levels 1 through 3, 6 pages. You're searching for a small child in the woods outside of a town. Very
Yeah.
small adventure.
Yeah, and I mean, and then if you want to go a little bit bigger, 22 pages, 27 pages.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these are all very manageable things that you don't have to do tons of world building. You don't have to commit 6 months or a year or 2 years to play. So, and again, it sounds very much like Ben and I are outside of the norm.
Yes.
Because statistically, whenever I see polls done, most people do not finish out these long adventures, or at least over the over 50% mark don't actually end up making it through, whether it be scheduling, whether it be burnout, whether it be, people's times, boredom, whatever. There's a ton of reasons it could be. It just doesn't happen. And so I think having resources like this and knowing about resources like this is really huge because it can help you, especially if you're in that situation, hopefully enjoy your time together more, enjoy the game more, and then get you that sense of satisfaction for finishing something.
Mhm. Exactly. And I mean, again, this doesn't mean that you can't have your group running through again several arcs of something to give them, satisfying endings to adventures. And then you can always pick up another one, but use the same characters if they want to, change characters if they want. This is one of those things to do, like, maybe look at running some sort of West March campaign where, the people who are actually playing week to week or whatever might change. Or maybe the characters that they want to run might change week to week. It's kind of really up to what your players want to do, what you want to do, and how to work it out. And the thing that we always come back to is if everybody's enjoying themselves and having fun, you're doing it right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just kind of to round this out, I know a lot of the statistics also show that a lot of people stay in that 1 to 7, 1 to 9, 1 to 10
Mm-hmm.
range of levels. And I think partially this is due to official content just not supporting those 10 plus levels very much. Like some of the anthology adventures have it, but most of the official stuff only goes up to 12 or 13 max. Apart from a very few things. So I'm really hoping that this Vecna Eve of Ruin changes that somewhat. But if you're looking to dip your toes into that higher level tier 3, tier 4 stuff, one of the best written things, it's an anthology called Uncaged Goddesses. It is very good. There is a bunch of tier 4 adventures in it that you can run. 21 to be exact. New stat blocks, new adventure maps, a bunch of custom artwork. There's even 8 pre-generated tier 4 characters. If you
Ooh.
don't want to go through all the trouble, or if you want to just break it out for game night and have those sheets printed out to give to people. I believe they're even a little simplified so that people can just use them easier. But these are, again, high level things, but you're only probably going to be talking, 10, 15, 20, 30 pages at most
Yeah.
for the adventure to run it. And so this is one of those books. It's incredibly well done, but it's exactly the type of thing that I feel like Matt Colville was talking about when he made this video, is being able to run cool things like this, and especially at tier 4, very cool thing like that, but then fully finish it in just a few sessions max and have that sense of fun and closure and satisfaction.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I love my long form campaign partly because I'm the one who's writing it and making it, and I enjoy it. My players seem to enjoy it, so it works for us. If we were having people who, would only be able to give a small amount of time or something, I'd probably look at more anthology stuff and, run those and kind of, just get some sort of adventuring done and all that fun stuff. I mean, even when this long campaign is done, I plan on running a potentially another long campaign, which is going to be Spelljammer. Looking forward to that because it's something entirely different and everything. So
Are
overall,
you going to be
it's
running the
just
module, the actual Spelljammer module?
um I'm not sure yet. I might start off with that and then go further into
See
it.
where
But
it goes. Yeah.
yeah, because I mean, a big part of it is um, how do you how do you run something that is infinite? You have infinite space to play with. So I'm thinking like, mix something of like Firefly and Star Wars, maybe have like, different factions of like, space and stuff, like think maybe like Voyager or, something along those lines. There's so much kind of going around that I'm like laying the groundwork of what my astral plane would be like. And I'm like, the more I think about it, the more I'm kind of getting excited. I still haven't written anything down for it, but the ideas of like, okay, well, this sci-fi adventure I remember loving as a kid, like I can totally pull stuff from that and kind of incorporate it and change it and twist it into something for D&D. And then this from over here and stuff. And it's just like, it's going to be a playground that I am going to have a ton of fun with. And I really hope my players do too. So if not, you know what? We'll split to something else. That's how it all goes.
Yeah. And that's again why it's good to have regular check-ins with your players to make sure that um regular check-ins with yourself to make sure you're still enjoying it.
Yeah,
Regular
exactly.
check-ins with your players to make sure they are still enjoying it. And if not, then you can have those conversations for how to either wrap things up in a satisfying manner or to change to something else. It may be anthology adventures, it may be shorter things, it may be a different system entirely. There are a lot of really good systems out there.
Yeah.
And if you have the time and the bandwidth to experiment with those, or you want some change, there's a lot of fun stuff that you can do in that too. Okay. So that's send us your thoughts. We would love to hear what you think about long form versus short form campaigns.
Yeah, and especially if you complete key campaigns all the time. And
Yeah.
one other thing too that we never talked about is that um, time constraints are definitely different based on your age. If you're playing D&D and you're like in high school, you probably have way more time than say you and I, who are adults with jobs and lots of other responsibilities that we don't get a chance to play all the time. You know, we can't spend an entire day to D&D every single week or something. So, yeah, that
That
changes stuff too.
sounds really fun though.
Oh, it does, doesn't it?
Maybe eventually.
Once I make my millions, that's what I'm going to start doing.
It's one of those things where it's just like you start off with more time and then you hit the middle part where you don't have any time, and then hopefully eventually you'll be able to retire at some point, and then you get lots of time again.
Oh, that'd be great. That's when I'm going to write the best adventures because I have
Yeah.
nothing else to do.
Keeps your brain sharp. Keeps your brain sharp.
Exactly.
Um, One thing, talking about keeping your brain sharp, with D&D stuff, you have been checking out the book of Dice and Men that we talked a little bit about that recently came out a
Yes.
few months back, and you've been reading it. And I know you're not through the whole thing yet,
No.
but we talked about potentially having a few pieces of discussion, a little piecemeal of some of the interesting things that you're learning or finding out from this book.
Yeah. So, of Dice and Men, the stories of Dungeons and Dragons and the people who play it by David M. Ewalt. Um, I'm really thoroughly enjoying a book. I don't usually read nonfiction, so this is like something new to me to read, and I'm definitely enjoying it. It is a great mix of David, like, you know, talking about the history, the growth of D&D, as well as like kind of intermixing, you know, some of the stories of like, you know, how the game is played, how like some of his adventures have gone, like not exactly doing like a full play by play of like, in this combat we did this and this, but you know, like kind of narrating it like it's an adventure story or things that are going on. And it's a good mixture of all that together, which is a lot of fun. Plus, I think anybody who actually hasn't ever played D&D, it gives kind of a concept or an idea into, oh, so this is what an actual session would be like when he's talking about like, you know, playing through in his game and stuff. But there are some of the things that this is touched on that I just found incredibly interesting is just, you know, the history of gaming moving into Dungeons and Dragons has been just a fantastic journey so far, and that's most of what I've read at this point. But it comes from like, you know, some of the first strategy games that are ever created, you know, from like, you know, the 16th century and stuff, like moving forward, like there were these games called Little Wars or Kriegspiel, moving into like chess, where everything was about strategy and war and, you know, bettering your opponent and everything like that. Then it moves into, you know, like historical miniatures and fights with that, where, you know, you're looking at like you know, Civil War recreations with like miniatures and fights, and just the huge vast amount of rules that they have for those. In fact, one of the best parts of this book so far has been David going to a wargaming like convention to see what it's all about, as research for the book, because, he loved D&D and everything, but he never really kind of saw you know, where it got its roots from. So he went, signed up, joined. He was a commander of like one battalion, and there's this big giant map with everything. He had infantrymen, he had this and that, and like the rules were entirely based on, like, okay, well, in order to move this much, your troops need to be in this formation. If you want to fight, you need to move them into this formation. And like, it's so rules heavy. And his description of it and everything just made me think, oh, I never want to play this game, because it is so like bogged down with like, just like, exact motions
Some
and rules
people,
and stuff.
some people like crunch with their crunch.
Yeah.
But that, yeah, that I feel like that just sounds extremely niche.
Yeah. In fact, I think if I remember correctly, there's a line in there, and I'm totally paraphrasing this, but he's like, the fun of that sort of like historical wargaming is arguing the rules as opposed to actually playing the game, because so much of it was just discussing the rules and like, would this work? Would that work? Is this possible? And things like that, which was like really awesome. But from there it built into someone like kind of being more of like a GM, giving the rules of like a scenario versus an actual historical battle. So you didn't have the, okay, well, here are the numbers, this is what's going on. This is kind of where like the GM or the DM kind of started going into play. And one of the names that I've never heard of before, but David Aronson started adding like fantasy elements to some of his war games. So like he had I think it was like Hannibal crossing, what was it, the Alps or whatever, like with the elephants and everything like that. So there's this attack elephant coming, and then he just suddenly added a druid who shot like this beam of energy at the elephant, and then like he just started adding unexpected things, and the players were just totally loving everything about it. And so they can come in and actually be surprised and just be like, oh, this is news, this is neat, and have to try to counter different things that were not expected for a change. And then with that he started creating like kind of, I mean, it's like a proto D&D version of a campaign setting of Blackmore, which is like big kind of tower and castle system and stuff that people would go in and like kind of adventure in, and he'd change up and everything, put monsters in and everything. Meanwhile, he met with Gary Gygax, who is the name that everybody associates with D&D. And, they kind of started corresponding, going back and forth. And so he kind of took Blackmore and ran with it in his own way and made Greyhawk, which, as we know, is a D&D campaign setting and everything. Except the way that they ran their games was so different and crazy. And I'm so happy that we kind of went with Aronson's version versus Gygax's version. Because Gygax, he would sit behind filing cabinets so he wasn't seen, and he would only allow one person to speak with him. They would like speak for the entire group. So like they would say, like, oh, we're going to attack the whatever or whatever. And then he would say something, from behind a thing so he wasn't seen. So, think insanely heavy duty DM screen where you don't see anything from their side
That's
of it.
very odd.
Yeah, I'm just like, okay, he's like basically the voice of God, like literally in this situation. Whereas Aronson, was visible and stuff, but they kind of had to, refine the process and realize that, if you're talking too much, you might miss something that the DM would say. And, it's like there's that kind of whole dynamic going back and forth. One of the cool things is kind of seeing how some of the classes grew organically based off of things that they were bringing up into games. Like clerics were created to be like healers because they brought vampires in. So it was like kind of the counter to a vampire. It's like, oh, it's a holy warrior kind of thing. What's going to stop a vampire and stuff. So like things like that were really neat. The rule sets that they, the idea of them just like writing out the rules and then like typing them up and then printing them and then selling them as like this little pamphlet is how D&D started. And like they did their first printing of like 1,000 and it took a while to sell. But then by their second and third printing, like it was just flying off the shelves from wherever they would go. So obviously they had something. so they formed their company together and everything, and then D&D was selling great. They couldn't really keep up with demand, but in order to like keep the company going, they had to create other games. So they were moving back into like traditional war games as well, and making up new rule sets for those. And then like on top of that too, they're just all like, well, D&D's out, how are we going to keep selling D&D to the people who bought it? So that's when they came up with, oh, well, let's make supplements, let's make adventures, different campaign settings. So then the growth in there, as well as publishing their own magazine that would have like D&D stats in it for every month, so people would subscribe to the magazine. So again, they're just putting out more and more content and keeping it growing. And that's where I've kind of left off in what I've read so far. But the idea of them understanding is like, we need more adventures out there, because once someone plays the game, they're done. So let's add more content and bring more content, because unlike Monopoly, you have your one set of rules, it doesn't change. It's just go around the board and all this stuff, do that. Whereas with D&D, it can change every single time you run it. But if you run an adventure enough times, the things that are going to be coming up, like, oh, there's supposed to be a snake in this room here, or there's traps over here. So let's just, dodge these bits and stuff. So by bringing more content out there, they were able to kind of keep the business alive even longer and stuff. And it's just like all the strategy, everything into development, into, supplementing everything. It's a really interesting read so far, and I'm looking forward to getting even more into it. Like it's pretty awesome. I'm pretty stoked. So yeah, definitely from what I've seen so far of Dice and Men, The Story of Dungeons and Dragons and the People Who Play It by David Emmett Walt is definitely a good read. Once I actually read more of it, I'll be able to say it's a great read.
Well, thanks for sharing kind of what it's really interesting stuff.
Oh, totally. I mean, just going from the development of gaming itself, and with like strategy gaming and stuff. Like he talks about the very first game, that like ever found and dug up, and through archaeology and stuff like that, and learning how to play and stuff. I mean, just overall, it's really neat.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to learn all this stuff.
Yeah. I can't wait till I get through some of the specifics.
Yeah. Oh, plus on top of that, I'm getting to the point where some of the other people who are like contributing and stuff, the drama that's happening, and like people like writing up their own rule sets for different things, except having to be heavily edited because it just doesn't make sense and stuff. And I'm just like, oh man, there's some tea that's being spilled. Gotta watch out.
Yeah. Board game, like tabletop RPG / board game drama.
Exactly.
Like I feel like this is probably true everywhere, but it's probably especially in creative spaces when there's disagreements and such. It's just like, all right, I'll just make a new ball and take it home with me.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some of the other types of games that came out, there's like Trolls and Taverns or something like that came out, and Dungeons and Dragons is like, wait a minute, we're gonna sue you for this. It's a little too derivative, and just different things like that are coming up, and it's just like this is a really cool story. And like I haven't even hit like the 80s or the 90s yet. Like I'm so excited to get to the Satanic Panic era to like read about everything that kind of happened with that and stuff.
Because
like
I kind of just missed that.
Oh yeah, same here.
Childhood wise.
Although I do remember, like in church growing up, I did hear the evils of Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm just kind of like, okay, like,
yeah, I feel like I was on the tail end.
Yeah,
tail end of that stuff. Yeah,
but
yeah.
Did you ever see or hear of Mazes and Monsters? Stars Tom Hanks, and it's like a horrible Satanic Panic movie.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I've heard of that one.
Looking forward to reading about. I'm assuming that's got to be in there because it was like a big
one would hope
like kickoff of all this stuff. So yeah. But anyway, yeah, book is good. We'll have a link to it again, and check it out if you can. It's a good read. I'm really enjoying it.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Ben, for the recap of what you've gotten through and some of the interesting bits so far. Honestly, that's pretty good place to call it to call it an episode, right?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. But of course, before we finish up, we always talk a little bit about what we are doing in our games. So, Ben, have you gotten to play since the last time we recorded?
No, not yet. May has been a flurry of busy weekends, but we're going to be coming up in the next I think 2 weeks or so. Memorial Day we're going to be able to play or the Sunday before Memorial Day we're going to be playing again, and I've already got a lot of stuff kind of worked up and everything since we're going to go visit Erland, the elven country. So I'm looking forward to it. I've asked my two player characters who've come from there to say, hey, what does this place mean to you? What's it like to you? What does it look like? And so just kind of some of the descriptions that they give me, going to build off that and, use that collaborative storytelling to really kind of grow the place and stuff. Cause I mean, their characters grew up there, so obviously they're going to know about it.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about it whenever you're able to finish that one.
Oh, me
Here,
too.
episode
But of
two.
course the boat ride there is going to be fun.
As it should be.
Yeah. And
Big
there's
things
already,
happen on boats.
oh yeah, there's already one place they're going to stop off before like halfway through. Cause they need to resupply and stuff.
Yeah.
And they're shipping things. So
Getting the sidetracked from the main quest. I love it.
yeah, it's great. We're gonna have
Love
fun
it.
with this. And of course, who knows what's going on with the rest of the world while that's going on? I know.
That's right.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
fun stuff. Yeah, let's see. So I know that I've been super busy. I know that you've been busy too, but were you able to squeeze in a game?
Yes, 2 nights ago we were able to get we usually play every other week, so we've been able to keep that schedule honestly pretty well so far.
Good.
Um, our last session was probably one of the best sessions of D&D I've ever run.
Oh wow.
One of my players said it was the best session of D&D he's ever played as a player. And it was funny because I thought it was mainly going to be a combat session.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was using the D&D Beyond maps for. This big warehouse thing because they were investigating and trying to get this organization join in, trying to get information from this organization to figure out where all these disappearing refugees and such had gone, whatnot. The combat ended up only lasting a round and a half before they were able to basically negotiate their way out of it.
Oh.
Through some very good RP and some very good rolls. It ended up that the leader of this particular criminal enterprise, it just kind of like to rewind a little bit. This is all taking place in a city. And so I've had to change my entire mindset, and I've had to change my players' entire mindset. This is not necessarily just like an adventuring party. These are not actually adventurers. There are people who have either ended up in this city or live in this city and have lives in this city. Like, these criminal organizations don't just want to murder a bunch of people.
Mm-hmm.
Because that puts massive amount of heat on them from the local authorities. The players don't want to just be murder hobos and kill even a bunch of just like NPC people because something might be illegal. Like, there are laws, there are processes, and so it is such a big mindset shift from the adventurers of, I go out, I'm traveling a bunch, I go from town to town, I kill all the things that are bad guys.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's an entirely different state of mind. But they didn't end up killing any of the bad guys from the this criminal enterprise. They've been using the rule of, you can call melee damage non-lethal.
Mm-hmm.
That's a rule. You can't do it for ranged, you can't do it for spells, but you can do it for melee. And so they've been using that to great effect to not necessarily kill people they don't want to kill. So this has been a really big thing. So they were able to get a lot of the information they wanted. They were able to kind of they're kind of being caught between two worlds because they're working with the authorities to an extent, but they're also kind of doing their own investigation into this thing. And so to get the extra information they needed, they had to basically tell the constables to stand down for a certain amount of time. And
Yeah.
this is one of the constable like commander people is a friend, a very good friend of one of the party members. And so this was a really big deal to have to say no, don't come or wait. We're trying to do things, but then these people might get away because they're also doing a bunch of smuggling and stuff right now on top of things. And so it ended up being that they got the information they needed. They called in the authorities, but then they went back to kind of apologize a little bit for doing that. But then they found all of the. They went back to the warehouse. Everyone was gone, but all the constables' bodies were all over the floor. But they found out, so they were super scared that everyone they just led everyone into this like ambush, and they just gotten everyone killed. But they found out they just knocked them out, right? So they lost a bunch of evidence. They lost the bad guys, and he got his friend and the men knocked out. Like this was a really big deal. This are ramifications. Then this really tore this character up, and so they had an incredibly like good heart to heart with some of the other characters later, and we had one of probably the best RP sessions I've ever had, ever been a part of, in any D&D game. Everyone is a great role player. They've really put so much thought and effort into these characters, making them real people, giving them roots, making the connections that they have. I mean, one of the characters uses like basically the memory spell. I forget what it is. Basically, think of it kind of like Harry Potter, where they're taking
Oh
memories out.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Where
yeah,
these like the pensive. Yeah.
yeah.
Decode
So
thoughts.
we've yeah decode thoughts. So we basically have themed that a lot around it and created an item that can play those memories back. But after they pull those memories out, they don't have them anymore. And so one of the things this character does to cope is they just literally remove memories
Oh wow.
that are bad. And that's like their numbing
Oh
process.
man.
And so there's another character actually played by my wife that's kind of the foil to that, who's this very kind, caring, compassionate character um, who is trying to help this other character who basically numbs by literally forgetting the pain. And so it was very beautiful and very moving. And there were definitely a few non-dry eyes in the session, but it was extremely well done, and I'm very proud of my players in this campaign for really committing and just giving it so much.
Yeah.
And it's totally has this campaign, even like 9 or 10 sessions in, has just totally subverted my expectations for what a campaign can be. And it's one of those very much the I know we were talking about this a few episodes ago of the D&D is only for combat. Just like no. D&D is for combat because it has mechanics for combat, and I
hmm
am very happy about that. But the amount of emotion that has just come up, and I don't need a bunch of rules for this.
Yeah.
I don't need my system telling me all these rules for all these interactions my players are having. But by God, I need those rules for combat. So it's just been almost like a case in point of that statement we talked about that Brennan Lee Mulligan was talking about for his the was it the Witch and the Wild One and
Yeah.
um podcast that they do. So I thought that was really cool. And yeah, I'm excited to see where things go.
Me too.
and how
That's
much combat they end up avoiding. Because this is definitely, I normally run like about a 50-50 combat RP type thing.
mhm.
This definitely skews maybe 60-40, 70-30
Yeah.
combat RP. So definitely a little heavier RP campaign than I normally run, but I am just enjoying the heck out of it right now.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like
So
everybody really is. And again, that's the point. And it sounds amazing. Absolutely amazing. I know when my players hit on, some real, like, deep stuff that's going on, like they're coming to realizations of things, or, kind of talking out what's going on, or, realizing the feelings that they didn't realize were there, like when something traumatic or tragic happens or something. It's great to be able to kind of RP those out and be able to, really get and dig into character and understand that character so much more, so that you're able to kind of pull and base just future interactions and everything off of that. It's so much growth and stuff that a lot of people don't really know or understand, that, RPGs really give you a chance to kind of do and explore things that, you might not, one, have the safest space to explore, or two, might not have the ability to do it yourself, but you're able to, kind of do things through characters, or just be in entirely different sorts of situations where you're able to, take control or pull or change the outcomes of things and stuff. And, it's one of the best things that I think has come out of, especially fifth edition, since it's not so combat focused as, say fourth edition was, or something along those lines. So yeah, sounds like
yeah,
fun. I'm
yeah, that's
so
been very
looking
good.
forward to more.
I am as well. But with that, I think that will officially end our episode. So, Ben, before we go, why don't you tell everybody where we can be reached, and hopefully have a really good conversation, because I'm excited to get into the Discord a little bit for this episode to talk
Mm-hmm.
about like long and short campaigns.
Yeah. And so if you wanted to tell us about, how you feel about long and short campaigns, or again, if you want to give us those crazy stats of, oh, I started this one, but never finished, and started this one and never finished and stuff, email us, send those to dndiscussions@gmail.com. It is a great way to get a contact of us, get a hold of us. Send those in. We read everything. We try to respond in a semi-timely manner, but we do want to make sure that both of us actually sees the email first before, we do respond and stuff. So anyways, so that's one way to do it. Another way, you can find us on Blue Sky. That's right, the Blue Sky social media, the friendlier version of Twitter, as some people have called it. The show is at DN Discussions. Ryan is at TBK Zord, and I am at Ben Bumhofer. Now, as Ryan was saying, we do have a Discord, and the thing is, you can find a link to join that Discord on our website, which is dndiscussions.com. Also there, you can find every single episode we have ever done. That's right. All 111 episodes will be there. So definitely check out dndiscussions.com for our show notes, for our link to Discord, and all that fun stuff. Last but not least, if you want to listen to me playing some Dungeons and Dragons, definitely check out the live play +5 to hit. We're going through Rime of the Frost Maiden. We are in a wonderful cave system right now, looking for a Netherese city. It's pretty exciting. And holy crap, after that last episode, crazy stuff happened. And there's something going on with my character too. Just, throw that out there. But yeah, with that, everybody, thank you very much for joining us on this episode of D&D Discussions. Ryan, it has been a pleasure as always. Listeners, thank you very much for giving us all the support and love that you have. And everybody, until next time, roll well and be good to each other.
Take care, and we'll see you soon.